San Antonio, Texas, a city where Spanish missions, Wild West legends, and modern culture collide. But how did this unique city begin? From its humble start as a remote Spanish mission in 1718 to the bloody Battle of the Alamo, and the birth of the iconic River Walk, this is the history of San Antonio, a story of survival, rebellion, and triumph. Let's dive in. Where waters whispered, the birth of San Antonio. Long before flags flew and missions rose from stone, the land by the river sang with life, Yanaguana, the refreshing waters, as the Paia people named it, a sanctuary of springs and spirit in what would become Texas. On June 13, 1691, Spanish missionaries and explorers stumbled upon this sacred place, its breath timed with the feast day of Saint Anthony of Padua. They baptized the river San Antonio, but it would be decades before ambition took root in the soil. Father Antonio de Oliveras, with fierce conviction and the dreams of empire, saw destiny in the flowing waters. Though politics and pride delayed his vision, in 1718, through the hands of the Paia and the Patia, stone by stone, they raised the mission, Misión de San Antonio de Valero, and the presidio that would protect it. A bridge linked spirit and sword, while the Acequia Madre flowed like a lifeline through this new settlement. Around these walls gathered the first families, and from their hope grew the Villa de Béjar, the beating heart of Spanish Texas. From whispered prayers to the pounding of hammers, San Antonio was born in faith, forged in resilience, and destined for legend. Children of the Crown, the Canary Islanders, and the birth of civil San Antonio. In the grand design of empire, a spark of hope was kindled across the Atlantic. On a warm February day in 1719, the Marquis of San Miguel de Aguayo envisioned a new world planted in the wild heart of Texas. He proposed that 400 families, strong in faith, blood, and loyalty, be gathered from the Canary Islands, Galicia, or Havana to breathe life into the fledgling Spanish province. The king agreed. But dreams, even royal ones, are battered by winds of delay. Years passed. Only 25 families made it to Cuba, and a mere 10 to Veracruz before the call was silenced by sudden orders from Spain. Yet destiny would not be denied. Under the steadfast guidance of Juan Leal Góra's 15 families, reduced in number but fortified by marriage and resolve, crossed the unforgiving terrain from Veracruz to San Antonio, arriving on March 9, 1731. 56 souls, weathered but undeterred, joined the small military outpost and laid the cornerstone of civilian life in Texas. They named their new home San Fernando de Béjar, a village of hope, built by hearts carved from stone. From their lineage came the first baby born of Canary Island blood, Maria Rosa Padrón, and through their legacy generations of San Antonians still trace their roots to the brave few who dared to begin anew. Empire and uprising. Juan Leal Góras Jr. and the road to revolution. In the shadow of his father's legacy, Juan Leal Góras Jr. rose as a titan of ambition during the Spanish-Mexican settlement of the vast southwestern frontier. Fueled by the fervor of conquest and empire, he staked claim to nearly 100,000 square miles of wild, unyielding terrain, land that would one day span 6 modern U.S. states. San Antonio stood at the heart of this domain, not just a capital but a symbol of Mexican expansion, a beacon of colonial might stretching from the rugged lands of Texas to the distant shores of San Francisco. For nearly 3 decades, Leal Góras Jr.'s power surged like a desert storm, his military legions carving out outposts in the wilderness. But dreams, no matter how grand, bleed when met with harsh reality. Financial collapse shattered the expedition's momentum, forcing his forces to retreat into a fractured Mexico, torn by internal rivalries and external pressures. Yet San Antonio endured, its soil soaked in the sweat of settlers and soldiers alike, growing into the largest Spanish enclave in Texas and the seat of the province of Tejas. From its heart stretched the Camino Real, a lifeline to the frontier town of Nacogdoches. But the spirit of rebellion brewed. Mexico, seeking to stabilize its tenuous grip, welcomed settlers from the United States. These Texians brought with them a new language, new customs, and deep resistance to Mexican law, especially the abolition of slavery. When Santa Anna cast aside the Constitution of 1824, he tore away the last threads binding Texians to the Mexican nation. What followed was fire and fury, the Texas Revolution, born from betrayal, bound by cultural clash, and blazing with the cry for independence. Blood in the dust, the fall and fury of San Antonio. In the closing days of 1835, Ben Milam, with defiance burning in his eyes, rallied the Texians to seize their destiny at the Battle of Béjar. Under his daring command, they stormed San Antonio and wrested it from the hands of Mexican General Martín Perfecto de Cas, Santa Anna's own kin. But this victory was not peace, it was the opening salvo of a larger storm. As spring approached in 1836, the winds of war howled once more. Santa Anna, draped in the arrogance of empire, marched toward San Antonio to crush the Texian rebellion with fire and steel. Within the crumbling stone walls of the Alamo, a volunteer force, led by James C. Neal and later by the steadfast William B. Travis and the legendary James Bowie, prepared for the unthinkable. For 13 days they held against impossible odds, refusing surrender, forging a legend. On March 6, blood soaked the mission's earth. Every defender fell, but their courage lit a blaze no army could extinguish. Remember, the Alamo roared like thunder across Texas, and it would fuel the fury that led to San Jacinto, where Santa Anna's dreams shattered under Texian vengeance. Among those who carried that flame was Juan Seguin, the proud Tejano who fought not just for liberty but for a home worth dying for. He bled beside Anglo brothers at Concepcion, Béjar, and San Jacinto, only to be driven out by the very men he helped free. In 1842, threats and hatred silenced his voice, and for nearly 150 years, no other Tejano would lead San Antonio. His exile was a wound upon the soul of a city born of courage, betrayal, and sacrifice. Ashes, immigrants, and iron will, San Antonio's second birth. In 1845, the United States claimed Texas as its own, and in doing so, set the stage for a brutal reckoning, the Mexican-American War. While the stars of victory hung over the U.S., San Antonio paid a dear price. The once thriving frontier town was gutted by the violence and instability of war, its population slashed by nearly 2/3, leaving only 800 weary souls amidst the ashes of dreams. Yet, from this devastation San Antonio would rise again. By 1860, it had become a bustling crossroads of 15,000, a mosaic of migrants, immigrants, and survivors forging a new identity in the heart of a battered land. When Frederick Law Olmsted, visionary designer of Central Park, passed through in the 1850s, he described the city not as broken, but bewitchingly strange, filled with a jumble of races, costumes, languages, and buildings, unmatched outside New Orleans. It was a city alive with contradiction, part cowboy, part colonial, part immigrant dream. The Civil War came and went, but San Antonio endured, its spirit carved deeper into the soil as it blossomed into a hub of the cattle industry. And as cowboys drove herds through its dusty lanes, another force was reshaping the city, the Germans. Drawn from small surrounding towns like New Braunfels and Fredericksburg, they came seeking opportunity, bringing with them culture, language, and the iron discipline of their forebears. By the dawn of the 20th century, a third of the city bore German blood, and echoes of Texas German, that hybrid tongue of Teutonic roots and Lone Star grit, danced through San Antonio's air. To this day, names like Wurzbach and Wiederstein, carved into street signs and family headstones, whisper of those who helped build the city a second time, not with muskets or fire but with hard work, resilience, and a fierce commitment to the promise of San Antonio. Steel rails and shifting skies, San Antonio's journey into the modern age. In 1877, the whistle of progress echoed through San Antonio as the Galveston, Harrisburg, and San Antonio Railroad cut across the land like a blade of destiny, marking the end of isolation and the beginning of a new era. Texas, unlike the eastern states, carved its future through the steel veins of railroads, not along winding waterways, and San Antonio surged forward on this bold, interior path. By the turn of the century, the city's old heart was torn open. Historic buildings sacrificed to widen the streets for streetcars and the roar of modern traffic. Yet even in loss, San Antonio forged ahead, determined to grow, to evolve. And grow it did. By 2005, the city had nearly doubled in size since the 1970s, swelling not only with new people but with stories, dreams, and cultures. From a diverse community that in 1990 was over half Hispanic, San Antonio emerged as a rich tapestry of identity, anchored in heritage but reaching for the future. Recognition soon followed. The Alamo and the San Antonio missions were named UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and the city's culinary soul earned it the coveted title of UNESCO City of Gastronomy. San Antonio's heartbeat, once faint beneath frontier dust, now pulsed with the rhythm of professionals, artists, and a new wave of African American families returning south, drawn by opportunity and community. Even as over 31,000 asylum-seeking migrants were released into the city during the 2019 national emergency, San Antonio opened its arms with the grace of a city that understands both struggle and sanctuary. From railroads to refuge, it remains a city in motion, resilient, radiant, and forever redefining what it means to belong in Texas. From a dusty frontier outpost to one of America's most visited cities, San Antonio's history proves that even the smallest missions can leave the biggest legacies. If you enjoyed this journey through time, smash the like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, what's the next historic city we should cover? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode on History Love.